Yeah, they're installing the. You go downstairs now. They've got the wall already installed for the taser, so we can also charge it.
I don't.
Yes. So what ended up happening was when Panasonic wanted to go into phase 2, and while we were looking into phase 2, there were just some serious questions about the second phase as well. So we just decided to.
You guys use the taser, but I remember that they had to rectify the situation.
Yeah, so we still had some pretty significant concerns with it, so we're going to go ahead and implement the taser program. Yeah. Technically, I guess it's probably gone into effect as far as actually the implementation of. Now, the distribution of the taser, we're still in the process of getting that. So it just, these companies, man, they're like, it's 30 days, it's 45 days, we get everything completed. Mitch, good? You ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay. Guys, I appreciate you coming today. We called the press conference for an issue that arose over the last 2 days, so I'm going to give you a heads up about something that kind of came down. Excuse me, shut this door real quick. So for the last several months, the Greenville County Sheriff's Office, the Greenville City Police Department, and the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division have been working together in an investigation involving a corrections officer from the Greenville County Detention Center. During the investigation, we learned the corrections officer, his name is Kendall Sean Marlin. And before you guys get out of here, we'll give you digital copies and let you guys take a look at the warrant. Kendall Sean Marlin was involved in some illegal activity, and the evidence during the investigation led to the arrest of Mr. Marlin. The arrest was the result of Marlin's deliverance of a substance represented as a ½ kilo of methamphetamine on Tuesday, June the 27th, to an undercover SLED agent. All of this transpired again within the week, the actual culmination of the investigation. At this time, we have absolutely no reason to believe that Mr. Marlin was taking these drugs or sending these drugs over to the detention center. I want to be clear about that. We don't have any reason to believe that he was sneaking them in or distributing contraband within the detention center itself. Again, he was taken into custody on June the 27th, and there's the probability of some additional charges to go with this. We're looking at the possibility of a misconduct in office charge as well. We've still got to get that through the solicitor's office, and again, with the investigation itself still ongoing, we're taking a look at that. As a side note, I want to make it clear that the detention center and the sheriff's office are two separate entities. I do not run the detention center. So before you guys start asking a bunch of questions about that, I just want to make sure I remind all of you that I don't run the detention center. Like I said, the mugshot will be distributed to you guys and copies of the warrants to go with it. So be respectful of the fact that we're still in the process of conducting a portion of this investigation. SLED is aware, and the press conference being held today, but there's some questions that I just am not going to be able to answer. So I'll do best I can, so you guys go ahead and ask.
Any other correction officers involved in this, or
No.
anybody else in law enforcement involved in this?
No indication outside of, obviously, the investigators, the undercover agents that were working it, but from the bad guy side, no.
Can you tell us more about Mr. Marlin? How long he's been with the detention center, what he does there?
He's a corrections officer. I can't tell you how long he's been there because he's not an employee of the sheriff's office. So I would probably have to direct you to Bob Mahalik for questions related to that.
But again, as far as the methamphetamine seizure, no distribution, anything like that into the detention center as far as your investigation?
As far as our investigation is concluded, not at this point.
And the drugs weren't acquired through his job either, like evidence or anything like that?
I'm not going to get heavily involved in the discussion of how the investigation began. We'll probably release a little bit more on that once the report's done. Again, SLED is conducting the actual, what we call the code 5 or the report portion of that. So once that's done, we'll probably be able to give you a little bit more on. We picked it up with some information. Once we received the information, we contacted SLED. Obviously, because the corrections officers involved, the state agency, or a county entity involved in it. So we contacted SLED to ensure that there were no improprieties during the course of the investigation at all, and then we moved forward from there with SLED.
Any other jurisdictions, Sheriff Will, involved in all of this? Are there other jurisdictions that are also being looked at or investigated?
The only other jurisdiction that was involved, with the exception of, again, the City Police Department, SLED, and the Greenville County Sheriff's Office, was Pickens County, because when we originally charged him, we took him over to the Pickens County Sheriff's Office because we don't want to house him in the detention facility that he policed. So we took him over there for safety purposes. He has since been transferred over to the Greenville County Detention Center, and that's where he's at now.
Granted, he is not an employee, but there's a good chance that your men have probably worked alongside him at one point or another at that detention center, or at least had to deal with him in some way, shape, or form. Considering that this happened right next door, how much does it shock you that this actually happened?
Well, first off, let me be clear. The detention center is huge, and we do not have contact with probably 95% of their employees on a regular basis. What we see when we go into the jail is the people who we transfer custody to, and normally that's the same routine people that we transfer custody to on any given shift. So actually the probability that we've interacted with him is pretty low. To answer the second part of your question, it's very shocking. I mean, it's very shocking any time that you have a law enforcement officer or a corrections officer or anyone that's affiliated with the state involved in any activity like this. We're held to a higher standard, and you know, we have to complete training and specific training for that. So you know, it's bad enough to see it on the street, but when you have a person who's held to that higher standard, it's even more shocking.
Is there any chance that the sheriff's office might enact some more changes? I mean, granted, detention center, it's by the county, but are you aware, or do you have any idea if there will be any changes that will be made as a result, either, I know you might not be able to answer about the hiring process, but if there will be a screening, potentially more screening for employees once they go into the jail, just to make sure they don't have the contraband themselves?
Yeah, I have no idea. Again, I would probably have to defer questions to either John Vandermosen or to Bob Mahalik about that. We don't establish set, or quite frankly, I don't even know the policies of the detention center as far as reading them.
But would it be unusual, even for a detention center officer, to have to undergo a daily screening process, just basically to make sure that they don't have the contraband?
You said, would it be usual?
Would it be unusual? Would it be too much to ask?
I don't know their protocols.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have, you know, outside of the training that I received at the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy for detention facilities and for the minimal training that I had in CO work, you know, my limited experience inside a jail or working around a jail is just that, 2 weeks tops out of my entire career.
Sheriff, you may have said this. What is he formally charged with?
He's formally charged with trafficking methamphetamines, over 400 grams, which holds a mandatory minimum of 25.
25 years.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else involved? Anyone? Did he act alone, or was it part of a ring? Is that part of the?
We have no indication at this point it was part of a ring. Every indication right now, again, just in the initial stages of the investigation, show us that he was by himself.
Do you know if he was dealing to a specific group of people or a specific person within the jail?
I do not. And again, we don't have any indication that he was distributing in the jail.
Just dealing, or he was
Trafficking. Yeah.
How did the investigators, and this may be something you're not allowed to answer, but how did they find out that this was going on?
Through hard work. I mean, honestly, through beating the streets, ground pounding. You know, the men and women at the Sheriff's Office, the men and women of SLED, the men and women at the City Police Department, a lot of the work that we do is brought to us from people on the street or from word on the street. The backbone of every single agency is the Uniform Patrol Division. So a lot of times the men and women in Uniform Patrol will hear things and they'll relay that information to our narcotics team, or they'll relay that information to an investigator somewhere, and we're able to start an investigation at that point. So generally just good, solid police work is what started this.
Did you guys get a tip from somebody outside that told you about Mr. Marlin trafficking or involved in drugs?
I'm probably not too comfortable going into that right now. We'll just don't slow down.
To be clear here, was he doing this in the jail, or was he doing this in his off time outside?
To be clear, once again, we have no indicators at all that he was trafficking, distributing, or transporting anything to the jail. We have no reason at this point to believe that he was moving anything into the jail.
How are these workers classified? They're not law enforcement? Are they like security guard type classifications?
They have various classifications. There's an academy at the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy where your normal standard road deputy would go for a Class 1 certification. There's a corrections officer training down there as well. It's shorter than our Class 1 certification. Some corrections officers are classified as a Class 3 law enforcement officer, where they can perform law enforcement duties while on site at the detention facility, but their jurisdiction does not expand outside of that facility. So it kind of varies between those two most of the time. Now, I do know that in some agencies, there are Class 1 certified law enforcement officers that work the jails as well. I know in Pickens County for a period of time, they had them over there. In Anderson County, I don't know what they do now, and in Spartanburg, I don't know what they do. But you oftentimes will see the detention corrections officers that will come back to the road and work uniform patrol for a period of time, or work in investigations, or they may transfer from the road back to the detention facility. So it kind of varies.
But they're not equivalent to a deputy.
You know, I hate to use the word equivalent. Maybe on paper, I think is probably a better way to put it. So on paper, they're not classified the same as a Class 1 certified law enforcement officer goes. But they go through the rigors every single day that law enforcement officers go through on the street. Corrections officers are no different than law enforcement officers when they're at work. You know, they have to deal with the worst of the worst and the best of the best, just like we do on the street.
I'm not sure if you said this earlier, but where did he acquire the drugs from? Do you know?
Granville County. It was within the confines of Granville County. So it was I believe on the east side of town. Don't ask me a specific address, but I believe it was on the east side of town where I picked it up.
Are more arrests expected in this case? Does he kick off another layer of people involved in the meth operation?
You know, in every investigation, you hope that it spins off into something else. I think at this point, it would be a little bit too early to say. But, you know, in every single investigation you have, you hope something spins off of that to a bigger, better player somewhere down the line, where you got half a kilo today, you want a full kilo tomorrow, and then you look for the source. So, you know, I hope it does, but, you know, I think it's too early to say right now.
How much did you say he had, or sold?
Pound.
A pound?
A pound, a half,
Okay.
what's half kilo?
Any price tag on the street?
Oh gosh, I guess 2.2 pounds, kilo of meth is probably going for, yeah, probably about what, 100? Yeah, that's what I was thinking, between 55,000 probably for a full kilo. So half that, 25,000.
55,000.
Yeah, for a kilo, you're probably looking at about half of that with a pound. So you're probably looking at 27,000. And that's in wholesale value. Now, in street distribution value...
Now, he had a half kilo?
He had a half kilo.
Okay.
In street distribution value, I mean, God, I'd hate to even try to guess what the street distribution value of that would be. Depends on how you break it down. So...
Can you think of any, like in recent years, has another detention officer been in trouble with the law in recent years? Specific, maybe just drug charges or anything?
To this level, I can't think of any. I mean, somebody that's facing a 25-year minimum, and not to this level, I can't think. Drew, have we had anything that you can remember?
I've been here 12 years, and I can't remember ever running across.
You're all done to everything.
Chief?
Regular stuff.
I can't think of any.
Just curious.
How many correction officers work for the county?
Oh, I would have no idea. You know, I know they've got a lot.
Of all the drugs that would be out on the street in a large quantity, how insidious is methamphetamine?
So, with the increase, as you all well know, with the increase in heroin, the uptick in heroin in Granville County.
Can you start that thought over? I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's okay. You're good.
So, you know, as all of you know, with the uptick in heroin in Granville County, the opioid pandemic, which is what I'm calling it, because it's worldwide, you know, people would think automatically there may be a decrease in one drug since there's an increase in another, people switch. What we've seen is with a massive increase in heroin, we've seen the increase in methamphetamines as well. So generally what we're seeing, the numbers I'm hearing are between a 3 and 7% increase in meth distribution throughout Granville County, on top of what heroin already has. So we're continuing to see the growth of drug trafficking with the heroin uptake. So it's not like one's decreasing because another one's increasing.
And is this the biggest meth bust this year for you guys?
This year? Probably not. No, I would feel very comfortable in saying no, that we've had. As a matter of fact, I'll just tell you flat out no. We've had some pretty good licks this year.
I'm just trying to get it all straight.
Yeah.
When did your investigation really begin in earnest on this guy?
A couple of months ago.
A couple of months ago.
Was he an employee pretty much the whole entire time, or was he suspended? Are you familiar with that?
He was an employee the whole time, as far as I know.
So January, February was.
Probably safe to say somewhere around February, March.
Did he sell undercover?
He sold
To an undercover?
an undercover, yes. Undercover.
Sled agent.
Yeah, that's correct, a sled agent. Guys, we have a very, very solid working relationship with the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division and the State Grand Jury, and they are very interested in what goes on in Greenville County. So we enjoy a unified coalition, I guess would be the best way to put it, with SLED, the Grand Jury, and narcotics from both sides, and also with the City Police Department and the other municipalities that work throughout the county. So, this is not, when we talk about drugs in the upstate, we're talking about everyone's involved. From a law enforcement perspective, we have a real desire to see this problem eliminated. So we enjoy that working relationship.
The investigating agencies were county, SLED, and
Greenville City.
Greenville City.
Correct. Good?
Just want to get a correct spelling on Marlon and everything. That's,
When was he arrested?
June the 27th.
Is he still in jail? Where's he at?
Drew? Is he still in jail? If he bonded out, he bonded out this morning. If he bonded out. And I feel very comfortable that if he bonded out, he's probably on GPS monitoring as well. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Good spell, yeah.
So he's already had his